There are millions of acres of opportunity out there. They belong to you. Every day, decisions are being made that affect your land, your water, your wildlife. You should know about them. This is your mountain.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Your Mountain podcast. I am not your host, but I guess kind of today I'm your host. I'm Nephi Cole, and I'm here today with Mike McGrady.
Yeah. Well, we're co-hosts.
We're co-hosts. Oh, it's so, I like this position. I like this equality thing.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah.
This is good. Something's missing, I feel like. Can't quite put my finger on it, but I think it's Dave Wilms.
Is it?
It is.
All right.
Yeah. Dave could not join us tonight. Do you know what he's up to?
Something for work.
Just work.
So my usual excuse.
Yep. Well, it's nice to know that it's nice, in our new spirit of professionalism, we will not make fun of Dave and say that he never works, because he does work his butt off all the time. But
Sure.
This is the first time he's ever had to miss one of these because he's been working. So, Dave, we miss you. We honestly do.
Absolutely.
So
Okay. So what do we want to talk about tonight? He's not here. We're gonna have to figure something to talk about.
No, it's different because usually Dave picks what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Or at least he strongly encourages us to talk about.
Refuses any other option?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So I guess with our newfound freedom today, we're going to do something that we haven't done before.
Yeah.
We're going to answer some questions from people that came in, and we're also going to touch bases on some
recent
things that happened that are important to sportsmen.
Yeah. Let's start there because we're recording this Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. 2019.
Did you have tacos today?
Yeah, something like that.
We had tacos for dinner. It's delicious.
So there was a recent sort of movement on something related to the Pittman-Robertson Wildlife Restoration Act, right?
That's right.
Okay.
So House, the Target Practice and Marksmanship Training Support Act is known as HR 1222. So that act passed, and companion legislation had already passed in the Senate, and that was Senate File 94. And a lot of people are just calling this the range bill. Mm-hmm. So for folks who don't know how that works, it's kind of funny. This act, the Target Practice and Marksmanship Training Support Act, has been around for 14 years, this language that goes into this act.
Yeah.
So...
Well, let's just stop for a second and think about it. We just had a bipartisan approval of a bill related to firearms make it through the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
And it's now on the president's desk.
That's
as
right.
we speak.
And he's going to sign it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So this
it
one
probably won't get a whole lot of press. I'm going to be honest. It's kind of funny, right? But yeah, it passed.
Well, okay, so let's just take a second because we have explained the legislative process in the past and just recap before you get into the details. I can do it real quick. Essentially, as Nephi mentioned, there was the Senate version of the bill that already went through at a different time.
Yep, and that was Senate File 94.
So this one, this House bill that went in was introduced mid-February, we'll call it, and it ran through the House Natural Resources Committee. It also went through the Subcommittee on Water, Oceans, and Wildlife, and essentially pushed its way through by the end of April. Essentially, it got a vote, and they handed it over to the Senate side, who then received it, and because they'd already taken action, they just took it up, read it 3 times, and got through on a voice vote, basically, or unanimous consent vote.
Yep.
Without any amendments, and then they essentially, within a couple of days, had it teed up, put on paper, and sent to the president on May 2nd. So it's on his desk right now, and that ran through bicameral and presentment now. We're going through both houses of Congress, and now it's to the president to become law.
Yep. I mean, it's pretty exciting. And for people that don't, for this to, wrap your heads around this, it went through relatively quickly, in this session. But think about this. It's been around for 14 years, and it's been included in 15 different pieces of legislation previously. And through no fault of its own, what happened is the other stuff wasn't popular enough. So what happens is, in order to get these bills through sometimes, right?
Yeah.
They take this bill, which passed when it went through all by itself, right?
Right.
It like everybody's thumbs up. This is great.
Yeah.
So what we did is, instead of commonly what folks will do is, there's a certain amount of
log rolling,
yeah. Horse trading, whatever you want to call it, in order to get something through. You find something that everybody likes, which this has been supported for 14 years as
Sure.
You find that, and then you throw a little on here and you throw a little on there, and then so you try and pack some stuff on top of that wagon as that wagon's rolling through, if you will.
Right. You find a bill that has to pass no matter what, that has something to do with funding or something that everybody can agree that we just have to have, and then you throw something else in there unrelated. This is the log rolling process, and then you tack it on to get it through, to get approval.
Yep.
Because no one in their right mind would vote against the big thing we all have to have
that we like,
because of some little thing that gets tagged on, and that has become one of the only ways you can get things passed in this Congress, or at least it has been for over a decade now.
Yeah.
And so the fact that this actually was sent as a standalone bill and made it through all the way to the president's desk on its own is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's a firearm bill in a very divided Congress where firearms are not a great bipartisan topic.
Yeah. There's some folks there, and I could call them out by name, but I'm not sure that's appropriate this has been a priority of the National Shooting Sports Foundation, which is the trade association of the America's firearms manufacturers, for that long. And there's a couple of individuals there in D.C. who have really, really worked on this and just done a fantastic job of educating and building that consensus to get it through. So,
well, it's got to have some redeeming qualities to it. So
yeah. So state game and fish agencies have been asking for this bill for that time period. So what does it do? It's actually pretty simple, but what it does is allows the use of Pittman-Robertson dollars. It changes how the percentages of those dollars and how they can be used. And here's how. So when your Pittman-Robertson dollars come in to your state, you can use up to 10% of those on range improvements. What this allows states to do is it allows them to use to cost share 90% of either range improvements, and these would be for publicly available shooting ranges, and those can be shooting ranges on public lands or private lands. But it allows the state to pay for, it allows the state to use to get a 90% federal funding piece, and then the state has to match that at 10% for the development of a new range or for the improvement of an existing shooting range. It used to be 25% was how much the state had to come to the table with, and then 75% federal match. Now, the other big provision in this that it did is, it used to be that if you were going to purchase, make acquisitions, whatever the financial arrangements for spending that federal money, you had a 2-year window to make that commitment within. And that 2-year window, believe it or not, with the way bureaucracies move, 2 years is quick. And sometimes they couldn't get projects done within that 2-year window.
Yeah.
And so this gives them 5 years to spend that money. When they say we're going to spend it for this, they have 5 years to complete that process. So it increases the window, and then decreases the amount of state match that they have to be able to allocate to be able to use Pittman-Robertson for this. And game and fish agencies, just so we're clear, they were the ones that have been really pushing and really asking for this. And there's a reason for that. Do you want to know why, Mike?
I do. Tell me.
So here's the reason. So a lot of people would say, well, wait a minute. We're taking Pittman-Robertson dollars. Those are dollars, the habitat dollars, whatever.
Sure.
And now we're going to use those to build a shooting range. Here's why that's important. The most limiting factor we know for people to get involved in hunting the shooting sports is what?
Access to information and opportunity.
Access. Like, let's just say access, because it can be access can mean a bunch of things. It can mean the place to go hunt, right? Because a lot of us think of access as like being able to get through the gate. Mm-hmm. But also, it's access to the opportunity. It's you getting your foot in the door. So it's not just hunting. For a lot of people, it is access to a place to go learn. It's access to a place to do a hunter safety class.
That makes sense, because if you don't have access to a rifle range to practice shooting a rifle and understand how it works and how, safe operation, safe carry, and all those things, you're not going to feel comfortable walking around the woods with something that you don't understand.
Yeah, people don't just decide. I have a great tangential story about this, but people don't just be like, oh, you know what I'm going to buy a rifle just for myself. I've never hunted before. I'm just going to get this thing, and hey, give me a box of shells. And I'm going to wander into the woods.
Sure. Well, we hope not.
I was at Boise State this weekend, and they were doing I was at the BHA rendezvous, and myself and some state game agency leaders went to Boise State, and they had a group of programmers there who were working on virtual reality breaking game down in virtual reality, like doing
how to dress out a game?
Yeah.
Game animal?
Elk and like whatever. So they're starting this, and it was super cool. So you like put on the VR goggles, and they had like, so your hands are in the little glove things, and you like reach down, and you pick up like a fake life, and you're like you're looking at your hands, and it is really neat. And then you like pick up, you like make an incision, and then you lift up, and you cut here and cut there. And it was teaching you how to quick quarter an elk. And what they're doing this for is because they found that, like, for a lot of people, they know that a lot of people, like, the impediment to them getting started hunting is it's really intimidating to think about, like, going off into the woods and actually what happens when you get one.
Yeah, right.
And so they're going to introduce this.
I understand that.
They're making it available for free for hunter safety classes. And it's really, really cool. So coming back to the Pittman-Robertson thing, it's one of those things where if they can't learn, right, there's no place to go get your foot in the door, then number one, for getting involved in hunting and fishing, that's pretty tough to do. The other thing that's really important about this, and this is something that we miss sometimes as hunters, but I think we've covered it, is there's a recognition that 80% of our Pittman-Robertson dollars don't actually come from being in the field and hunting. Mm-hmm. Right? 80% of our Pittman-Robertson dollars come from people who are shooting at the range. And so basically the idea here is if you've got a shooting range where people can go practice, like the numbers, whenever anybody, pulls a trigger on a shotgun, a nickel's hitting the ground, right, for conservation.
Yeah.
And so that's the reality of it. The funding, it is the golden goose, getting people out there participating. Pittman-Robertson, people spending money on firearms and ammunition. That's what's cranking the cash register on the North American model. And, it's more than 50%. It can't be discounted that we pay also, our license fees and taxes come in there too. But in some states, it's close to 50-50. In some states, Pittman-Robertson is much greater than that 50% margin. So yeah, it's an important thing. So having these shooting ranges, it's good for the future, and that's why they've been asking for this.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So at this time, as we said, it was sitting on the president's desk, and we anticipate that the president will sign. And so, yeah, that's going to be pretty neat.
Cool.
All right, we had a different question that kind of came in. So that was the sort of update on the latest with legislation in Congress. But we had a different question that...
I want to talk about Google first. Can we talk about Google?
Oh, sure.
Okay. You read an article.
Uh-huh.
Tell me about it.
Tell you about the article? Well, so...
And I have to tell you about it?
You're the one that told me that it even happened. So apparently... Rocky Mountain.
Get this. So first, let me lay it out like this.
All right.
We all agree that the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, is fairly important. Anyway, we'll start with that, and then we'll say they had a little issue where one of the technology companies decided that an entity that they termed a hunting entity wanted to put an ad on Google, and so the hunting entity sent their ad to Google, and they wanted to put it up, and Google denied it because it featured, cruelty to animals. Now, when I say that to you, what's the hunting entity you think of? I mean, you're like, you're like a hunting entity featuring cruelty to animals. I'm like, what? Like, who did this? Like, who are these? Who are these barbaric terrible people that like would do this.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't who I thought it was.
No.
Yeah.
Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, which just goes to show you that some people like, really, Rocky Mountain, we're not going to let one of the great conservation organizations like in this country for wildlife habitat, we're not going to let those guys put an ad on Google. And they said it was not like the content of the ad specifically, just because they were promoting, they wouldn't allow any ads that promoted hunting, is what the initial letter back said.
So then we had, well, wait a minute, before we get to the what happened, I have to clarify one thing.
Yeah.
Well, not clarify, just, make sure we all are on the same page. When you talked about the importance of the First Amendment, we can all agree the First Amendment is a tremendous thing. However, the First Amendment has nothing to do with Google or Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. The First Amendment is the prohibition of the government prohibiting you from speech.
You're right.
Regulating speech, right?
You're right.
The private industry doesn't matter. The Bill of Rights are all about restricting the government, not restricting individuals.
Yeah, it's interesting little piece of flavor there, right?
Anyway, so bear that in mind when Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation gets the letter from Google, and lo and behold, Senator Steve Daines and Representative Greg
Gianforte,
out of Montana get a hold of this, and they figure out what's going on.
You gotta love Montana, right? Like these guys are not scared to weigh in on wildlife, like whatever it is.
So they jump in.
If it's got fur on it, Montana is like they're going to talk about it.
So the government in general can't regulate speech or favor one thing over another, but a senator and representative can write a company and say, "What are you doing?"
Yes.
And that company, despite its large, bank and everything that it does as a huge global corporation, has to respond by saying, well, okay, so we don't actually have a policy prohibiting hunting ads. We've got a policy against ads that promote animal cruelty or feature gratuitous violence towards animals, and mistakes were made.
Yeah.
Essentially was their response.
Whoops.
Yeah.
And so
they said, well, this is a great opportunity to talk about how if anybody has their ad revoked, then they should use our appeal process. See, we can all learn from this and hold hands and see kumbaya. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, there you go. Good times. But yeah, so now we're going to get to see that great ad from Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation at some point.
Now I really want to see it.
I do too.
This has been great PR for Rocky
Mountain Elk Foundation. I sincerely hope that they, they make some money off this. There you go.
We'll see. Okay, now so now we're going to get to the question.
Oh, we had a listener question.
Yeah, a listener question, which is not one I would have expected, and I think it's a good opportunity to cover it.
You going to paraphrase it? Or do I want to paraphrase it?
Yeah, you paraphrase it.
So a listener wrote in and said, basically, hey, really, enjoyed the discussion, your guys' discussion about the Second Amendment, but I still don't get it. Why does anybody need to take a machine gun to go, hunt elk?
Right, and with clarification, it was identified the machine gun they were referring to was an
AR-15.
Okay. Yeah, AR-15.
Yeah, was the thought.
Right, okay.
There you go.
So essentially we had a listener write in that...
Why would you hunt with this? Yeah,
well, A, why would you hunt with it? And B, the more fundamental question was, what is an AR?
Yeah, well,
and how does it have an application?
They didn't ask that question.
No,
but that's the challenge. Like trying to be like, okay, sure. We obviously need to there's some educational opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So first of all, I don't think anybody that I know of. Okay, so let's talk about what is an AR. If somebody says I hunt with an AR, what does that actually mean? Well, an AR actually it does not stand for assault rifle like a lot of people assume. AR stands for Armalite rifle. So the Armalite rifle was originally designed by a guy, Eugene Stoner, in the 50s, I believe. Originally, it was a larger caliber, it was a .308 caliber rifle. So a lot of people hunt with a .308, just so we're all on the same page. .308 is also known as .762 NATO. It's typically a 150 grain bullet. It's going like 2,600 feet per second. It's a great cartridge for people who, it's a really great, small, medium game cartridge. Can be used for animals up to, elk and larger. One of the most popular in the world. So that's what it originally was chambered in. Later on, it was chambered, and just so everybody knows, this was initially the AR, the Armalite rifle, was a commercial rifle. It was marketed and sold to the public. It is an AR is a semi-automatic rifle. So, for those people who don't know what a semi-automatic rifle is,
so it's not an assault rifle.
It doesn't stand for assault rifle.
Okay,
no, it's not an assault rifle, but we can talk about what that.
It's not a machine gun.
It's not a machine gun. So
it's semi-automatic, and it has a machine mechanism.
In most cases, when people are talking, and this is tough because these terms are all very nebulous. And the people who kind of use them as nebulous terms on purpose. But an assault rifle, typically what you're talking about when you say like the real, like you're talking about a rifle that as selective has the capacity to be used as a fully automatic weapon.
Like you hold the trigger down.
A fully automatic weapon is what happens. That means if you hold the trigger down, you pull the trigger and you hold the trigger down, the gun goes,
That's not what you did as a kid.
No, what did I do as a kid? I went like that. So there you go. Nice. So if it's not going, there's your machine gun sound.
All right.
So that is a fully automatic weapon. Just so we are clear, an AR platform rifle is not that. It's semi-automatic. So what that means is when you pull the trigger, it goes boom. And then when you let the trigger up, it goes click. And then you wait, and when you pull the trigger again, it goes boom.
Right.
And so it's one shot with it's one action. It requires an action for every shot. Now the difference is the gun load like a semi-automatic, whether it's it's
an auto loader, right?
An auto loader, right. like a Browning Auto 5 shotgun, or like a Weatherby's new shotguns, or like a Winchester. What the heck do I have? Super X3, great shotgun, or like a Remington model.
Yeah, but you're naming a bunch of things that if this individual
all semi-automatic.
Yeah, okay, but
all semi-automatic rifle guns.
You explain how that works because the titles alone are not going to do it.
So how a semi-automatic works is when you pull the trigger, the gun goes off, and I know this might be for those of you who are super expert want to write in and tell me I'm wrong, or if we're boring you, I'm sorry.
We're trying to break this down.
Yes. So
So the cartridge.
This is for everybody that doesn't know. This is for hopefully for your mother-in-law. So when you pull the trigger, the bullet starts to go out of the gun, right? And some of the energy from the bullet going out of the gun loads the gun. So on a bolt action rifle, right, you pull the trigger, bang, and then you reach up right above you, use the bolt. Your arm is the thing that goes click, click, and puts a new bullet in the gun, right? Or a pump action, you pull the trigger, your other arm goes click, click, puts a new bullet in the gun. A semi-automatic, you pull the trigger, boom, and as on its way out, the bullet sends some gas, or the gas or the energy from the bullet.
The recoil.
Recoil goes click, click, and puts another bullet in the gun.
Right. So you have a mechanism in there that's designed to capture that energy.
Right. You got a spring in there someplace.
Sure. Yeah.
It's the combination of a spring and some gas. You go, the gun, the reloading action is an action that the gases take care of, so you didn't need to take care of it, or the inertia takes care of, so you didn't need to take care of it.
Right.
That gun will not continue to fire continuously without additional action, which is you have to pull the trigger again, and the gun goes bang. You pull the trigger again, the gun will go bang. So most of your handguns that are sold today, 75% of them are going to be, semi-automatic. The same thing.
Right. And it's not just that you pull the trigger. It's that you pull the trigger, it goes bang, and then you got to release the trigger.
That's
or
right.
Reset the
firing
trigger pin or whatever.
That's right.
To pull it again. So people can do that quickly.
They can.
And the machine can auto load the next round quickly.
That's right.
And there are some people that are very, very fast at this.
It takes a level of skill. So people who are competitive shooters who do a lot of work on that, they're going to be able to do that faster than, like, say, Dave. So, but
I've also seen people shoot like
bolt action.
I've seen him shoot like a Super 38, which is a revolver, right? I've seen him shoot that faster than a Glock.
Yeah,
they're just
Jerry Mikulik.
They're faster than that.
Yeah, Mikulik. Sorry, Jerry. So super fast, world record holder, and then I can, for the bolt action rifle, I can tell you with certainty that I can put, with a bolt action rifle in 2.5 seconds, I can put 2 rounds on a target in 2.5 seconds with a bolt gun. And so it's the level of training that people have with these, different firearms. So backing up now though. So now we have the AR, stands for Armalite rifle. It's a semi-automatic rifle.
Okay.
It's magazine fed. And so what does a magazine fed semi-automatic rifle that means? Well, guess what? Almost all your sporting rifles are magazine fed. Whether you got a bolt action rifle or a shotgun, these are all magazine fed rifles.
But it's whether the magazine detaches.
It's whether it's detachable. So an AR, a lot of AR Armalite rifles have detachable magazines. Not all, because if you live in California, you have ARs in California that are by definition not assault rifles. Under California's definition of an assault rifle, which is a very, it's kind of a, it's not objective. It's just kind of a, I don't know what the right term is.
Voodoo science?
Yeah, like what we decided an assault rifle was, but it's like the magazines are, cannot be removed without a tool is the rule, is the law. You have to be able to use a tool. So those tools, people get inventive with what that tool is, and then they can't have a pistol grip, and so that is you can put your thumb through the grip and some things like that. It's because the original definition. So what happened is, finish off. The Armalite rifle is just a semi-automatic rifle. The AR-15 that everybody talks about now is an Armalite rifle in the caliber .223.
Okay.
.223, or which is also called .556 NATO by some people, or YO-223, or .223 Wild, like a bunch of different. I mean, basically, what it is the .308, which the original one was chambered for. Yeah, it's a fairly powerful cartridge.
Right.
They wanted a weaker cartridge.
Right.
And so they went to .223, which is it's basically the smallest, cheapest center fire on the market that you could buy. It's a real, very inexpensive round that in most states, it's not legal to hunt with because it's not powerful enough. In some states, they'll let you hunt with it if you use a bigger bullet in it. So like Wyoming will let you hunt antelope with a .223 if you use at least a 70 grain bullet.
Yeah, I shot a turkey with a .223 once.
It's great for turkeys and rabbits and small deer and stuff like that, but it runs out of juice. So that's an AR-15.
Okay.
Now, when we talked on the podcast, I said I hunt with an AR platform rifle. So let me tell you what that means for me.
Okay.
I hunt.
You added the word platform in there.
Platform.
So, yeah.
Because AR platform, what that is now is AR, the Armalite rifle, was later adopted. So the civilian rifle was adopted by the U.S. military to replace the M14. The M14 was a rifle. It was a .308 rifle that was had the capacity to shoot, either single shots and semi-automatic or full auto fire. So the AR rifle that went to the military was turned into the M16, which had a selector switch so that it could be fired fully automatic. Right?
Okay.
That's different than what the civilian market has. So the civilian market, you have a semi-automatic rifle, which is it doesn't function different than any of the other semi-automatic rifles on the market. But it does get treated differently by people because people, are like, well, look at, the same rifle that some guy used in, this conflict. It's not the same rifle. Is it functionally the same? Yes. It's the platform is very similar. Like, it's just there's some pieces that are different and some functionality that is very, very different. Well, it's become really popular because it's kind of like it's a very modular gun. It's a gun that if it's like people call them like the gun, like a Lego gun. Because like you can get an AR platform gun, semi-automatic AR, and you can change barrel lengths on it to meet different needs. You can switch the calibers of the gun. So you can build them in, so the original 223, well, now they have them on all sorts of calibers. So now you can get them in, like, let's say you're a guy that, you like to hunt, feral pigs someplace. Maybe you want a little more. Well, you can get one in 6.5 Grendel, which is a 6.5 caliber round, or 6.8 PRC. I have one, an AR platform gun that's built in 6.5 Creedmoor, which is the same gun could have been in 308. And so when I say hunting with an AR, what we're talking about is just using a semi-automatic rifle that's built, it has A, B, and C, and then it can be in all sorts of different calibers. So now guys are making these quote-unquote AR platform rifles. So
it's fair to say
it's like a lever action rifle, right? If I said a lever action rifle,
sure,
or a pump action rifle.
But it's fair to say that AR platform rifles are the gun that is the most customizable.
It's open source.
Open source
is
a good way to say it, because every component you can find on the market.
Yeah, and they're all
hundreds of variations on what this forearm stock's going to look like.
Yeah,
what this shoulder plate's going to have, what this scope is going to look like, what the front. I mean, there's just no end to the number of things that someone can find and do, and so. Being the gear type of people that hunters and shooters tend to be, it's perfect.
They're really popular now. They're more of them are sold now. So more modern. They call them now the modern sporting rifle. More sold than traditional bolt action rifles, pump action rifles, lever action rifles combined.
So
and that's
how's it? Let's get to the point on now that we understand it. What
hunting?
How do you use it hunting?
Just like you use any other rifle. You go on with the AR, I mean, it's no different. If you have, you put 5 rounds in a magazine or whatever the state, some states limit magazine capacity and how many you can take out. When you go out and hunt big game with a rifle, I'm going to say that everybody does the same thing. You get as close as you possibly can to the animal within your, first you get within range. Then you close that range. I've got a good buddy that says, like, if you, so Ryan Kleckner says, if you're more worried about being missing than you are about being seen by the animal, it's time to get closer, right? And so you get as close as possible. You try and make a single ethical shot, and then you, as we talked about, you pull the trigger, the gun goes boom, the gun reloads, and then just like you would with any other rifle, if you have made a good shot on that animal, you're done. If you need to take a second shot, you pull the trigger again, boom. Mm-hmm. And so it's really just, I tell people, it's really just a rifle. So for those people that don't, that's the challenge, is getting people to understand. While it gets a lot of press these days, it's just a rifle.
So I'm most familiar with the AR-15 with a 223 model. So you're saying that you can get an AR
338
platform.
Win mag, 7mm rim mag, 270 30-06,
so common calibers
308
for hunting.
6.5, like. Okay. Just about any caliber you could possibly imagine, because it's just like you can get a bolt action rifle in any caliber you can possibly imagine.
All right.
But if you're looking at a semi-automatic rifle, if like that's, just like a semi-automatic shotgun or something else, if for whatever reason, like let's say you hunt the timber a lot, or you hunt in river bottoms, or places where it'd be very convenient to have a second shot that is, just right there, that's fairly, it's fairly quick, where you don't have to get off of your target to reload, to run your bolt or whatever. They're a great tool for that. And there's, like we noted on the market, they're the most prevalent on the market in terms of being able to find one that's going to be high quality, being able to find parts that work for one. And so it's it's a very popular rifle that's available these days, and it's in common use as a hunting rifle. In fact, at least a quarter of them that are sold are used exclusively for hunting, which matches the rest of the firearms community. As many ARs are used of the proportions sold for hunting as any other gun's proportions are used for hunting. It's just a gun now.
Interesting. All right. Well,
there you go. If you have questions, send them to Dave.
That's right. So I guess this is the point where we wrap it up. And
It is. Before we wrap it up, I understand, like, well, I'm kind of sad today.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to go to a neat event, but we'll mention it, which is you got, and without any need to discuss why you were there, but Senator Mike Enzi is done. Senator Enzi.
In 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, and
well,
you went
a year and a half. Yeah, at the end of his term.
You got to go to Gillette and listen to that.
Yeah, it's his speech. It was a great speech.
Yeah, good guy.
He recounted a lot of the stuff that he's accomplished over the years, and what he plans to do the next year and a half to sort of finish it out.
Well, we should get him on the podcast.
Yeah, we should.
All right, everybody. Hey,
remember, life is about experiences, so go have one.